Yay.
Hey, welcome to the dungeon where we geek out on all things horror, thriller, mystery, and suspense. And we have we're gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent here. We're gonna go off on a little side quest here. Typically, when I have authors or interviews, they're authors of books. Uh, except for maybe that one time I lucked out and got to have Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton, be my very first guest on this show. Which, if you're watching this on YouTube. So go into the little, I have a playlist of the interviews. So go and check that out. That was about 2 3 years ago, back when Terrifier 2 was just ready to come out. But anyway, we're gonna do something a little bit different. This is we're gonna talk to a publishing house, and we are talking to Jeremy Billingsley, who is the editor in chief of Sley House, and that's Sley Publishing.
Correct.
And he's one of these people that's responsible for bringing all the really cool. It was like I don't want to be self published, but a lot of the smaller brand and indie writers to the masses, so to speak. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for being on the dungeon. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing really well. It's been a pretty good day so far. We've got the storms over and here
Oh
in
yeah,
Arkansas, so we didn't flood too bad, so we're still standing.
that's good. Yeah, it's been raining all day here at the dungeon here in the Carolinas. But so give us a little. Now you're a publisher. You're an author yourself, right?
Yes, I am. That's actually my background is as an author. I got my MFA in creative writing in 2012 or 2014. I studied under shoot. They weren't horror authors, but I've studied under like Barry Hannah and Ellen Gilchrist, who are some pretty well-known authors in their own right, way back when. And um, I've had probably almost 20 years of publishing short stories in different anthologies. I got a couple of novels printed by small indie presses, and it was when my novel, now called A Mind Full of Scorpions, when it was picked up by two different publishing houses and both of them went out of business around the pandemic.
Ooh,
I decided, the intelligent thing for me, I guess it's I don't know how intelligent it was, but I decided I would just start my own publishing house. And so I do try to publish myself, but I really focus on other authors and trying to bring them a positive experience with publishing.
cool. Now, how did, with you being an author, what kind of things when you set out to create Sley House, um, coming from an author's background and perspective, what what kind of things did you know? Okay, I'm gonna start publishing, uh, our own books here, but as an author, what was the things that you were knew you wanted to include in Sley House, and what you were going to look for, and maybe how you were going to do things differently based versus how some publishers have worked with you in the past as an author? I'm assuming one would be not going out of business during a pandemic. So what check boxes did you have when you started looking into starting your own publishing company?
Well, I really approach this from two different, or actually a few different kind of perspectives. One, uh, all the way. I came at this from the perspective of an author. It's like, what do I want to see in a publishing house as an author? So one thing I said is, can we offer higher compensation rates and higher royalty rates? Especially when it comes to like the novels and the big manuscript kind of publications. I try to be competitive with a higher compensation, a higher royalty rate for the authors than what they might see at even a Trad 5 publishing. Um, I feel like, if it weren't for the authors, we're not there. Like the whole of the publishing industry, the whole of the business side of things exists because the authors work. And so they deserve more money. And so I'm trying to continuously find that balance about how much can I reward my authors and help them succeed and maintain costs so that we can keep this thing afloat. So I went at it from that perspective. I also wanted to learn more about I, I love the idea of genre. And when I was getting my undergrad and graduate degree, not so much in my graduate program, but my undergraduate program was at a traditional university, and the academics really at that point frowned on writing anything genre. They were like, we
Hmm.
want real life kind of experiences but then you go to a literature class and you're reading stuff like Dracula and Frankenstein, and it's like, okay. So I wanted to bring what I was learning in the craft workshops and as a craft of an actual like student of writing to genre writing so that you're getting really well told stories, because I think some of the stigma of indie publishing and small presses and self-published authors and stuff, whether it's deserved or not, but some of the stigma is maybe it's not very good. And talent wise or craft wise. And I want to be like, no, 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 no. We can find some of the best stuff out there in this. And I wanted Sley House to be able to showcase that. So we try to create engaging stories. We try to offer our authors the best royalties and the best kind of compensation that we can, and just bring a positive experience to the state of publishing with what we have to offer.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm looking at the website, Sley House, and again, it's with an E, slayhouse.com. And we'll have links to these things in the show notes of this episode. But you guys have a podcast,
Hmm.
uh, right? And I know it's on Spotify. Is it on like Apple and iTunes and any of the other? Is it on like your common podcast streaming services, or
It
is it
is,
only on?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
No, it's on all of them. I found recently, you probably found this too. I feel like all the platforms are changing. Like Google sent me something saying they're no longer doing like podcasts or something, and it's changing to a different venue, and it's like it's always shifting, but it seems like Spotify's always there. So it's like you can find us on Spotify. But
yeah,
yeah, anywhere you download podcasts, I think we get our show up.
okay. And so the titles here, of course, I guess one of the big ones that you have coming out, I think in May,
Hmm.
is a lady that I had on the show not too long ago, Gendia Gammons. And again, if you're watching this, you're watching on YouTube. So just go down a little interview thing or scroll through the videos. And Gendia Gammons is talking about her book that's coming out at the time of this recording. I think it comes out tomorrow. We're recording this April 7th. I think it comes out April 8th, called Doomflower.
Yeah, yeah. Her book Doomflower. That's not through us, that's through a different publisher, but we've
Yep.
actually got her book At a Comma coming out in May.
Yes. And thank you so much for now I practice this and I'm still gonna screw it up. Where's the camera? There it is. It's there we go. This one here. And as you can see, I'm still working through it. And this comes out I believe sometime in May. Yes, I can't see the yeah, it comes out in a month or
May
so.
13th. May
May
13th.
13th.
Yep.
Well,
May
you
13th.
you'll I will have Jendria back on to talk about this book. before that time. But you also sent me some pretty cool swag here. Uh, I don't know if my camera's gonna. I got I got this little sticker.
Our
I got
tiny
my
little mark
Yep,
stickers. Yep.
and I got my little mini fridge over there. I'm gonna put that on there. I just wanted to show it here for the show. This is a foregone conclusion. You're a you're a publishing company. You should have bookmarks.
Absolutely.
Just I mean, this is marketing 101. Just so and it's like different colors. So and then we got some artwork from Jadia's upcoming book. And now you're gonna have to tell me about this here. Who are these people here?
So the story, I would almost have to get into the creation of Sley House and how we came about the name. Um, Sley House, we struggled with the name for the publishing house until my wife kind of took the last four letters of my last name and said, "What if we just do Sley, like Sley House Publishing?" And I said, "Oh, that's a great idea." And so my friend Trevor and I, and Trevor does our most of our podcast work now. I started out on the podcast with Trevor way back when, and now I'm just so busy I have no time to do all of it. So he handles the podcast stuff. But my
All
friend
right.
Trevor and I were talking, and the first thing we decided on was one, a podcast to help grow an audience, but also um, because we love talking about books. And I said, I've got two goals here. I said, I want to do anthologies, like annual anthologies. I don't want to do themed anthologies because while those are pretty popular with readers, me personally, I love the surprise of like, what's the next story going to be?
Hmm.
I grew up on like Tales from the Crypt and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So it's like, I don't want to necessarily know what to expect. I just want to be surprised by it. And so we figured out the genres we were going to make. And I said, I do want to publish myself, but I have faith in my own ability, as a writer. I'm okay with that. I will allow myself to be kind of under the eye of like an editor. I won't like try and, some of these, I feel like somebody who like starts their own publishing house and like publishes themselves might be like, no, I don't need an editor. But I'm like, no, I'm going to put myself through the same rigmarole that I put the authors. Um, and then I was like, but how do we distance ourselves? Like, I don't want this just to be my publishing house. I want to publish other people. So how do we distance ourselves from it? So we created the identity of the Sley siblings. And the
Okay.
Sley siblings are in that photograph for that picture you
All
just showed.
right. And we've got like what was it? We got
So we have Genevieve Sley and
and then I got
Charles, and that's RG right there.
all
And
right.
Charles is the guy with the mustache.
All
And
right.
so the official
Okay.
line is that they're fictional. You know, I don't know, for some fun things, maybe they don't need to be as fictional as they could be. Maybe they could be real. I wanted to play them off that they were real, but Trevor poo-pooed that idea. He was like, "No, man, we got to tell people they're fictional." And I'm like, "No, no, no, it'd be fun." Um, so we have done an anthology of their stories called Tales of the Slay Siblings, Volume 1. We do plan to do more of this. um, we created these characters as kind of like a brand or like an identity for the publishing house. We didn't want to be just some other kind of voice out there. We wanted to give us a little bit of something that was descriptive and illustrative and something that people could look at this and be like, "Oh, this is a fun idea." And when we did our first call for submissions for the anthology based on the Slay siblings, everybody like the people who submitted, like William Sterling and a few other people submitted, and they had such a fun time with just creating the backstory of these characters. And just, they're a cross between like the Addams family and Tales from the Crypt, kind of crypt keeper,
Okay.
and just these weird characters that if anything goes wrong, like publicly, I can just blame them. I can be like, no, that
Okay.
was the Slay siblings doing this. It wasn't us.
So, so
They're kind of our punching bag where they can, if something's wrong, it's like blame the Slay siblings. They can
okay, there we go. Blame it on the dog.
blame it on the no, yeah. No, actually, I love dogs. I can't blame
Oh,
the dog.
okay.
No,
All right.
I'd rather blame the siblings than the dogs.
Okay. So yeah, I could see there was like it's almost like and like in the realm of movies, it's like all right, see so many actors uh try to sit in the director's chair, so to speak, and
Yeah.
what's even and what I find even more challenging is when they could direct their own movie,
Oh yeah.
and they have to, like, you know, direct a scene that they're acting in. So when you publish your own work, through Sley House, versus I guess when you're taking submissions or editing somebody else's work, um, do, do you do you find it difficult to switch hats or get into like a different mindset, or do you approach those two differently, or if you don't, yeah.
I I try not to because I had the I guess the luxury or the curse, however you want to look at it, of being a professor at like the university level. So I teach right now. I'm just teaching some graduate online courses, but I teach online. I teach graduate level creative writing courses. So I feel like there's a lot of crossover between being a publisher and being a teacher. Um, whether it's a creative writing workshop or I'm editing somebody else's manuscript, I I want to deliver the same kind of energy to that person and give them the same amount of attention. But when I decided to wear those hats, I said, okay, first I'm going to surround myself with a good team, and I don't want sycophants. I don't want people telling me, "Oh, this is great." I want people to treat me like I am one of the students in one of the workshops. I want people to treat me like editors have treated me in the past. So I expect my editors, when they edit me, to hold me to the same standard that I hold other people. We all get blind when we get really close to our own work. And
Mm-hmm.
so, it really helps having that other eye and to appreciate and value the other person when they come in and say, this isn't working for me as a reader. This isn't working for me as this. Let's see how we can make this better. And so being able to give yourself over to that, I think is very, very important. And so I encourage my editors to do that for me. And I do that for our authors because I want to deliver the best possible story that the author is envisioning out there, whether it's mine or somebody else's. Um, I think that answers your question. I don't know. I have a
Yes.
tendency to ramble.
That's good. That's good. Hey, it, it relieves some of the pressure off of me. It's like, okay, all I got to do is throw that question. I just sit here and look pretty. Just, but, uh, where was I going with that? I don't know.
I tell you, it makes lecturing fun because then I can just go on one of my like tangents in a lecture, and before you know it, the bell's ringing, and students are like, "It's time to go," and I'm like, "Okay, well, whatever we talked about today, just go home and absorb it, and well, see you on Wednesday."
and, and it's not going to be in a test because I can't remember what I talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got a free day off here.
No, I try to hold everybody to the same standard. I really do, myself included. My only goal is to make stuff. I want to obviously I want us to make money. I want us to sell books, but I want to deliver a product that we can all be proud of. You know, um,
Right.
and that's not only the inside, like what's between the covers, but it's also like the cover itself. We don't take AI. I don't like. I'm not even a big fan of like photoshopping images together to create a cover. Like I want original artwork. And
Mhm.
while some of our earlier titles have very beautiful covers that were that product of like using Photoshop to create this kind of image or whatever, a lot of our later covers have been original pieces of artwork, and I'm very happy that we have transitioned to that. I love a lot. I love all of our covers. I absolutely love them. Um, I'm very happy with the way this has transitioned to have this original artwork because I can treat the cover as a piece of art. The
Mm.
interior is a piece of art. The layout is a piece of art, and it's beautiful from like start to finish, I feel like. And that's one thing I want to deliver to the reader. I want it to be a full package for them.
Okay. Excellent. So now, so if just in case we haven't touched on it yet, uh, what genres of books do you have on in your
On our
website? I
website.
guess. Yeah, I was thinking.
We cover definitely horror. We cover science fiction, fantasy, to include contemporary fantasy. A contemporary fantasy book that we have right now, very much like a Pratchett kind of book, is that Joe Taylor's Bad Form is very much a contemporary fantasy kind of style book. But next year we're going to be published. Starting next year, we're going to be publishing Jandia Gaiman's high fantasy kind of. It's like a combination of high fantasy, kind of eldritch, kind of horrors, universe, cosmic horror story. It's the Veil of Dragons series, and so that's going to lean into our more, the more traditional kind of high fantasy look. And our anthologies, like I said, are a mix of everything to include the Southern Gothic. I think the Southern Gothic fits so nicely as a genre in with like horror and sci-fi and fantasy because there's so much of the Southern Gothic that is just out there and weird. And that was along with horror, the Southern Gothic is my bread and butter. It's what it's the kind of what I've written in over the past, you know, 20 years with short stories. So I'm like, anytime we can combine these elements and make a fun trip for the reader, um, that's what I want to do. And that's so those are the genres we focus on. I'd love to do like some mystery, not like cozy armchair mystery, but some real like thriller mystery, kind of like who done it kind of stuff at some point.
Mm,
Just whatever we can get our hands on, but I like to tell stories with, really good characters, really strong characters, stories that have definite themes to kind of examine, that have really something to say about the human condition.
mm.
That's kind of my draw to stories. So
Now, do you remember the very first book that you or first author that you signed on besides yourself?
yeah, I do. I do. We've actually got her second book going right now, ready for production. So the first author that I signed on was my editor for my book, A Mind Full of Scorpions. I met her through the publishing house that one of the previous ones that closed their doors. And
Okay.
she had her book, Ground Control, which was strictly a sci-fi. It's a family having to go to a settlement on Mars, and they're being uplifted from the home and everything they knew to go kind of fly to Mars and be part of this settlement. So their whole lives are being ripped out from under them. And I read the book and I fell in love with it. And we were interviewing her on our podcast, and I said, Karen, I said, I wish we had your book. I said that would have been a great book that I would have grabbed immediately. And she contacted me after the podcast and said, "Well, as luck might have it, I've got I've got the rights back to it, and if Sley House wants it, I'll let you publish it." And so we published it. We gave it its own cover. Um, we she's done some awesome work for me as an editor, and now she's getting back into like writing for herself. So she's working on a new book, and we're going to publish that too. And so it's really felt like all the pieces kind of fell into place for me, like right at the right time. Um,
Okay.
but that was a really good experience. And then after that, we just grabbed some more authors as they were coming in. I mean, it was really, really kind of fortuitous the people that we found and lucked into.
Okay. All right. Now I don't know when I first set out doing the horror geek dungeon, I wanted to do like um interviews with like directors and because I was primarily a movie and I really wasn't that much of a reader until I started getting more authors coming on. It's like, all right, so well, David Howard Thornton and Damien Leone was the only actor director combo that I even had on the show. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a book channel. So it's like, all right, I'll lean into it. So but so I have a lot of I have a lot of readers in my audience. I have a lot of aspiring writers and stuff like that. So I know I could just feel the little click click clack in their keyboards. It's like uh now I understand your submissions. Your there's a what do you call it, a halt or a freeze on your submissions, or what's the terminology that you use there?
Um, we're just closed for submissions right now.
Okay.
We're a small team and we need a breather.
Right.
And
I
so
understand.
like when we put out a call for submissions for like our anthology, we have a space for like 20, maybe, 20-ish kind of stories or poems, and we will get hundreds of
Mm,
submissions. And it's like if I open that to like year round, I would never sleep. I would have to do
yeah.
like I would have to do cocaine or something, I think, to handle. I hope that's okay to say for your readers.
That's all right.
But
I'm sure half of them were on it right now.
and same for the novels too. Like I still get novel submissions even though we're closed for submissions. And it's like really it's for my team to just kind of catch a breath. And also, as a small press, we don't have unlimited funds. So, like for anthologies, I want to pay pro rates, like 5 cents a word, 8 cents a word, something like that. But truth is, I just can't afford it because that's something I've learned as being a publisher. Whereas, like as an author, I'd say, oh yeah, pro rates for everybody. As a publisher, it's like, well, the sales have to justify it, and if the sales aren't there,
Mm,
then you can't pay it, and it stinks to high heaven because I really
right.
want to pay it, but we're not unlimited in our funds. So I've really got to be careful which projects I take and which ones I have to pass on. And I'm usually passing on a lot more projects that are really, really good. It's just I can't spread myself so thin. I can't do that and expect to be around here in 10 years. And that's what I really want to do is still be
Mm,
here in 10 years. Um, so I've really got to be judicious on who I take and when I take them. And if I don't close for submissions, then we're just getting overwhelmed with people bringing us stuff. And it's like, I know we can't take it now. So I would just rather be closed for submissions and then tell people when we're ready to take them. And hopefully we can help more people out. And the more people who buy our stuff, the
mm.
more submissions we can take and the more books we can put out. So
There we go. That's the ticket. That's the ticket. Now, do you have like is there I guess you could put a term in like a waiting list or something like that of authors that would want to show that have interest in showing you what they have, or maybe they don't have anything. And that's another thing. How far? And I don't know jack shit about publishing, so it's like that's why I'm having you on here. How flushed out does the idea have to be before they're able to submit something?
I want a complete idea. I want a complete, by and large, from people, I want like a complete manuscript sent to me. Obviously, if it's a short story for an anthology, yeah, have the thing finished and have it pretty well cleaned up and ready to go. If it's a novel, it's going to need work. I mean, they just do because of the size of them. But I do want a completed novel. I think with Jindia's like the trilogy that we're going to publish with her, I think we're waiting on, a couple. She has the books already, like kind of planned out, but we
Mm-hmm.
haven't like. I don't think she's finished actually writing them. But I know her as an author and as a person well enough to say she's going to get this done. So obviously, like a book series, maybe they don't have it all finished yet, but I would think the very first book in the series at least needs to be done. But for standalones, yeah, they need to have it finished and it's going to need work, but they still shouldn't necessarily have to like, it shouldn't be a rough draft they're sending.
Right.
It should be as polished to the best they can do it. And then we see if it's something we can work with. And then we try and help them take it to the next level.
Okay. Now getting back to what that question was originally going to be. Is there like a waiting list of that people could send you their name, email, whatever, what genre they write in, so that when you do open it up for submissions, you don't have to go, you know, looking for people. They're already there at your doorstep.
Thankfully, because we're listed like on Duotrope and some other places that list out like anthology submissions and calls for submissions and stuff. We've never had to look for like for
Okay.
we've never needed had a want or need for like stories. We've had them come to us. So I think the best thing, better than a waiting list, because that could even fill up really quickly.
Mm,
Better than a waiting list is we try and find and meet people out at conventions and we try to get to know people. And then, you know, we have this engagement with people, and the more people that we know, when we do put those calls for submissions out, we can look out for them and their stories and be like, yes, I remember meeting this person. I remember talking to them. I remember learning about them and discovering who they are. And I want to take a good look at their story. That doesn't mean we just publish like our friends. I mean, obviously we don't.
right.
Um, and in fact, with this anthology, I've had to turn down some authors who I happen to know and I know are really good authors and they're getting published in their own right. But because I was limited on space in the anthology, it was like, well, I can't take everybody and I've got to take the best that I can. So, um, but I think getting to know us and know what we're about and know who we are, um, is probably the best way to really kind of wait on us. But I do try to get to know our people and the people submitting to us and get to know the community and just make sure that they're all, you know, on board with what we're doing and we can all have a pleasant working experience, I guess is how I'd best say
Excellent. Yeah.
that.
And that's a good segue to have you if people want to find out more about Sley House with an E
Mhm.
publishing or order any of the books that you have on there, including this book that's coming out. I'm halfway through this one, and it's pretty. If you like X Files, I get like an X File vibe from this thing. So yeah,
I love the
it's
X-Files. That was one of the reasons I loved her book. I was like, yeah, I grew up on the X-Files. I love the X-Files.
so yeah, definitely check out Gentia's book and any of the other publishers you have on here. So if people want to find out more about your books or the people that you have on your channel, uh, where could they go?
We're all over social media. I've got a personal social media, author Jeremy Billingsley, Sley House, for both the podcast and the publishing has social media accounts, Sley House Publishing, at Sley House Publishing, at Sley House Presents. Um, uh, and that's, all of them, the TwitX or whatever it wants to be called now,
Yeah.
um, Instagram, Meta, Blue Sky, Threads. I think we're all over the place. So we're all, I think, a little too old for TikTok, but we have employed some college interns that can help us learn about
Good.
TikTok. So hopefully we'll get better at TikTok. And then we're all definitely too old for Snapchat. But we're everywhere else. And then of course on our website, www.slayhouse.com. And like you said, SLEY.